In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome to After the Game with my co-host, Coach Sullivan. I'm Josh Baker, and we've got a special guest in here today, Coach Brian Braddock from St. Augustine. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
Sully, so went from the from the guest chair to the co-host chair. It's good to have you back.
Good to be here. I'm excited having Brian with us today. Should have some good stories, some good Coach Wiles stories, I'm sure. And, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I can't wait to get in that Coach Wiles coaching tree here shortly. But, you know, Brian, kind of lived the dream, right? Every high school player, you get to play for your mentor, come back, coach with him, and then now take over, right? So talk about playing for coaches, first of all.
Oh, golly. That was a highlight of my high school experience. My freshman year playing football, that was the year before Coach came, so that was 1995. I played on an 0-6 freshman football team at St. Augustine High School. We lost to, I believe it's Lakeside Junior High over in Orange Park. I remember we gave up 66 points to them, junior high. We were not very good. I think our varsity went 2-8, and then I remember in January of 1996, Coach Wiles was hired to be the new head coach. And, I can vividly remember the first interest meeting they had in the auditorium at St. Augustine High School. They let us get out of class if we were interested in playing football. And it was pretty apparent in that meeting that things were going to be very different. And, for kids like me and a bunch of others, that was welcome news. From there, it was awesome. We wanted to be pushed and wanted to know that there was a point to what we were doing. And a lot of us had not experienced success on a football side of things. At that point in time, the baseball program was really successful, and a lot of us played baseball as well. But that was really exciting when Coach came.
How long did it take Coach to turn things around?
Oh, golly. I remember that first spring game. We played a half against Palatka, and I think we lost like 10-6 and a half, but they were outstanding. So it was kind of like, we didn't embarrass ourselves. We might be okay. And then, I'll never forget, this is back, 2-a-days. We had 3-a-days. We actually had camp on campus.
Good old days.
Good days.
Yeah.
Good times.
Well, and you can tell, you can just tell.
Yes.
You can just tell when there's a method. You can just tell when there's a purpose behind everything. You can just tell. Or at the bottom line was, there's no way we're doing all this work and we can't be pretty good. Like, there's just no way. So if for no other reason, psychologically, we believed we have to be decent because there's no way we couldn't be. But camp consisted of, you came in on Monday morning, and you got, I think, what was about a 3x6 taped off section in the ROTC bay. That was your bed. That was your space. Now at St. Augustine High School, that's plenty big enough. If it was, Bowls or Mandarin, it'd have to be like 4x8.
Right.
But at St. Augustine, that's plenty big enough. And then we had 3 practices a day. We had a morning practice at 6:30 a.m. I've got the old VHSs from the old highlight films of, the sun coming up, all the dew on the ground. Brutal. It's awful. About 1,000 degrees. The air's thick. So a practice, then we'd come in, have breakfast in the cafeteria. Midday practice before lunch, which was special teams, usually just helmets. And then we'd have the 2-hour fully padded practice in the afternoon, 4:30 to 6:30, whatever that was, and then dinner, and then went to bed for the night, which with 100 teenage boys, it was all, nothing crazy ever happened. Everybody was extremely well behaved always. But anyways, I'll never forget that. And we had that my 3 years of high school. Obviously, not long after that, 2-a-days were a thing of the past, and you could never now in a million years do that.
God.
No.
But
You can't even do the 2-hour padded practice.
You're right. You're right. Depending on the temperature. So
Wet bowl.
So that's right.
But you can do anything you want in the summer until you start practice.
Well, but we still try to avoid. We go early enough in the summer, we can avoid the wet bowl for the most part there.
But in the summer though, with FHSAA, there's no restriction. So if you want to lift all day and do what you want to do, but then as soon as August 1st starts, you can only go 2 hours.
Well, I was going to get the wet bulb out for graduations. People didn't think that was funny. So,
Yes.
But yeah, that was, that, again, some of the hardest stuff I've ever done. There's no way around 3 practices in a day not being pretty miserable. But it was amazing. It was awesome. And I remember we beat Nice week 1. Week 2, we upset Mainland. Mainland was defending state semifinalist. and that was huge. That was a monumental upset for us. We actually started that year 4-0, and I think finished 7-3, and from there, coach got things rolling.
Yeah. So leave St. Augustine, head to Florida State, right? Return. How different is the program then when you come back 4 years later?
So first 3 years, Coach was there. Those were my 3 years playing for him. We didn't make the playoffs. We were close. In fact, that first year we lost in heartbreaking fashion in a Kansas tiebreaker, 3-way deal for the 2 spots. But my freshman year at Florida State, I remember I got to come talk to the team briefly because they had made the playoffs. They were on their way out to Choctaw, and they had stopped at Leon High School. So I remember I got to see Coach, talk to the guys. So that was the first year. That would have been the 99 season. And then, things just gradually took off from there. And, of course, I kept track of them. 2001, the state championship appearance over in Doak Campbell. And by 2004, when I came back, I mean, it was a different deal. Just the quantity of kids that were playing, the quantity of good players that were out there on the field. I'd like to think that we were loaded with talent when I was playing, but I'm more realistic than that. So things had changed a lot. Just the coach had a great staff initially, but then just over time, the staff that he continued to maintain and to build, which just continued to grow over the years. It was an incredible staff. My first year back, Coach Jim Sauls had come in, who had been a successful offensive coordinator and head coach himself. And for the first time I could ever remember, we were throwing the football all over the place because Coach Wiles was a big wing T guy. And so it was an exciting time. When that year I came back, we knew, or I was told, that there was a group of rising juniors, a group of kids that were right there with the group in 01 and 02 that went to 2 semifinals, went to a state championship game, and sure enough, that's what that group did. Lost in the semifinals to probably one of the best teams this area's ever seen in the 2004 Bowls team. Just a ton of NFL guys. I mean, they beat us pretty good, and then the next year we were able to do the whole deal. Go 15-0 and win it.
Funny story about that game after state, because they beat us. Bowls beat us, and then you guys beat Nice, and Joey called me and go, "What do you think?" I go, "I enjoy this week of practice." That's what I told him.
Well, I mean, I was a first year coach, so I really don't know. I mean, we'd beaten Nice and Tim Tebow twice,
right?
So why not? But,
right.
No, that was a
good,
different
man.
animal.
That was good.
That was a football team that played like young men.
Yes.
They really played like young men. You could tell that was a special team in that not only were they talented, they were physically mature, but you could tell that they were also competitively mature. They were mature people. You could tell by the way they carried themselves, by the way they played. That was an impressive football team.
Yeah. Well, and back then, Coach Rogers was probably the last one to actually get away from the two-a-days and follow the rules, right? I mean, he was still grinding them. I promise you those kids were mentally and physically tough.
Well, they also didn't start school for till after Labor Day, and they'd been in there in camp. So they were getting 16 practices extra. We're in school at the second week of August, and they're still.
Well, you're right because it was a gradual change to the no two-a-days.
Right.
At first, it was you couldn't in the first week. Then you could do it every maybe it's week 2 you could.
Right.
So they were taking advantage of that for sure. It worked out well with their school schedule, and at a place like Bowles, you might have the wherewithal to bring them in more challenging times to get the kids there. So I don't fault them at all.
No,
boy, they sure made.
They
it
were
count.
good. That was the best. I tell everybody now that's the best high school team I've ever
really good
ever played against.
Yeah. All right, so you're at Florida State. When do you decide I want to be a coach? I want to go and coach. Was this what you always wanted to do, or just?
Yeah, that didn't take long. And like most kids, you go off to school and you're a little homesick. Everything has changed, and you're somewhere new. And would come back. I came back to a few games that first year at St. Augustine. Whenever there wasn't something going on in Tallahassee, and it was either the first or second game of the season. I was at a St. Augustine game, and I was like, I want to stay around football. I think I want to do this. And my original major was engineering. Was always good at math and science, and made good grades. And that just didn't seem that exciting, though. Although 20 years later now, maybe I should rethink that. But
still doesn't seem exciing.
No, it doesn't. But
it's beneficial, but not exciting.
Well, sure. The benefits look different, right? So yeah, I changed my major and did that by the end of the first semester, and kind of knew at that point what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. And perfect places to get started, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And what was pretty neat was over in Tallahassee, when I interned, did my semester of student teaching, I was at Lincoln High School.
Okay.
Who they had just won the 99 and 2001 state championships, and their 03 team was, by all accounts, the most talented team they had ever had. They were ranked like 5th or 6th in the country when the season started.
Right.
And who was there? Who was the coach at that time?
Coach David Wilson.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that was cool. So I mean, I wasn't coaching. I was hanging on for dear life in the classroom, just trying to figure out how to be a teacher. But so it was cool, and there was a period of time where I considered just staying there and I'll just start coaching here and teach here. But to come home, got engaged. The ability to come home financially made a lot of sense. I was able to save a lot of money that first year back, and then kind of set things up to take care of that end of things. And obviously coming back to St. Augustine was a great situation.
Right. Welcome with open arms.
It was awesome.
Head coach knows who you are, knows your character, knows everything about you. What was your first role?
I was the JV offensive backs coach, which I thought was appropriate because I've always told Coach Wiles if he had just let me play quarterback when I was in high school, the run would have started a couple of years earlier.
That's right.
So, no, I was coaching the offensive backs. Probably had absolutely no right to do that other than I knew what they were supposed to do from a physical standpoint. But that was a lot of fun. Learned some hard lessons that first year. A lot of hard lessons. Just you got all these grand plans and really have no clue. And I would say in the big scheme of things, I thought I was a kid that kind of knew what's going on, as a kid in high school and then coming back, but really had no idea like what this life is like or what it's like to coach, and but loved it.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Wide-eyed at every coach's meeting.
Yeah, and just didn't know what I was doing. I mean, didn't have a clue. Just yelling out at practice, which a lot of young coaches do that, and that's usually a pretty good barometer of how little they know what they're doing.
Right.
But yeah, coaching career started off with a bang. First 3 games that year of 2004 Yellow Jacket JV football, we were shut out. All 3.
And you were on the offensive side of the ball.
And I also should include there, we were coaching a future Division I quarterback, a future Division I safety who was playing offense, a future Division I corner who was playing running back. So I can't blame it on the talent. It was solely on the coaching. But yeah, so we were 0-3, but then we won 5 in a row. Went 5-3, kind of started figuring things out, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. What was the next step? What was the next step at St. Augustine?
Well, so what was kind of funny is so school year ends. It's now 2005. I'm gone for 2 weeks at the start of summer workouts because we got married June 4th, 2005. My wife Jenna and I. And then obviously went on honeymoon. By the time I come back, it's, whatever it is, mid-June. And I walk in the locker room, and there's Sean McIntyre. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He did not coach with us the year before. He had finished at UNF. And he's like, I'm coaching JV offensive backs. And I thought, dang, you get married around here, you get fired. Yeah. So I remember it like it's yesterday. So later that day, it was storming outside. So all the young kids were in the locker room while the older kids were lifting, and so we were in the locker room. And that was where this interaction took place. And then once the change was taking place, Coach Wiles grabs me, pulls me into an office, and he's like, "Hey, you've been gone, so I didn't have a chance to talk to you about this, but was able to hire Sean, so he's going to do the offensive backs, and you're going to be the JV defensive coordinator." I was like, "But I got so good at coaching running backs.
We won 5 straight. We actually scored."
Right. So, well, maybe he thought, just do what you did the first 3 weeks, but do it for the defense.
Right.
So, which was actually a huge compliment from Coach, and he, well, at least he put it that way to convince me it was. He's like, look, I want somebody that's sharp, that's got some fire, that's gonna know what they're doing, but it's gonna get after the kids, get them playing hard on defense. And I think the coach who had been the JV defensive coordinator the year before had moved up with the varsity with the defensive backs. So there was a void there, and yeah, we had a whole lot of fun, and that was cool. That was a really cool time because I can remember that summer just sitting in Coach Wiles' office and just from A to Z, just going through our defense and just learning all the basics, and still didn't know what I was doing that first year, but knew enough, I guess, to get the kids lined up, and that was a lot of fun. And then for the next 3 seasons, 5, 6, 7, that was what I did on JV, and it was a really good time.
Yeah, and 5 was a great year, obviously. Right, state champion year.
A lot of fun, and the JV Jackets that year only got scored on in one game, so it went undefeated and only got scored on in one game. So,
and he still left you there for 2 more years.
Well, we that's I didn't know what I didn't know, but what I remember so fondly about that time is I learned really quickly that there's so much more that goes into this than just calling a play or calling a blitz or calling this. So I loved Saturdays. Young, married, my wife she usually worked on Saturdays because she was also in school. So there wasn't, not like now. Now on Saturdays I want to be watching my kids' games or whatever that is. And so I'd be at the office. The JV coaches didn't have to come up for the varsity meetings, but they would meet at 8:00, and then they would break down the previous night's game, grade it, and do all of that, and start breaking down the opponent. And I loved it. I just loved it. I just loved being around the coaches. I loved getting to know the coaches, the cutting up, the silliness, the fun, but the work. Loved it. And I probably learned more football drawing cards for our defense in those meetings.
Just being a sponge.
Yeah, and I would just drawing cards. I remember it like it's yesterday, sitting at a table just like this, and Coach Wiles running the clicker, and Jonathan Ross doing the down and distance, and Kurt Stewart standing right here at the board putting the hit chart up, and me just drawing every single run play both ways and making a stack of cards and making sure, hey, is this how we think we're going to block this against this and this, and just it was awesome. I loved it, and what was cool is Coach just kind of let me. The JV season would end, and then to the extent you were willing to work, you could work. So, so I'd stay up, and I would help our DB coach with the varsity, and it was wonderful. So, and I'm really grateful, not just for Coach Wiles, but we had other experienced coaches those years, like Jim Matheson, and other guys that as long as I was there working and showed that I was competent, they let me go ahead. Take. It was nothing for Jim Matheson. We could be getting ready to play a 3rd-round playoff game. I'm a JV coach. It was nothing for him to say, hey, I'm going to take the safeties and go do this. You go take the corners and do releases or whatever. And I'm, 7 years older than them, and I'm thinking I'm the man. I may as well have been coaching the Jaguars. I'm getting to coach a kid going to Georgia Tech, and we're playing, Godby this week. So I'm just so grateful for them and how they treated me as a coach, just because I was eager more than anything else.
Did you think coaching wise that's sort of missing now with the younger coaches? Because it seems like to me all the younger coaches now want titles, and they don't understand like just sitting in a room with guys and listening how much you're going to learn and absorb if you're willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's a challenge too, because with efficiency, efficiency air quotes, we do more than ever, but we do less of that.
Right.
Now with Google Docs and the ability to do things virtually and then meet for shorter amounts of time. But no, that's that's a litmus test, because you really find out like who really loves that part of it.
Right.
Everybody loves standing there on a Friday night and making sure that everybody in the stadium can see you walking with the 2x2 line. Everybody loves that. But not everybody loves, when you had about 4.5 hours of sleep, and you're sitting there in a staff room and you're like, dang it, coach, can we just get to the wide angle so I can see my DBs? Because we've watched the front 7 times already. Living that life, not that I ever experienced that, living that life and drawing the cards and really, sitting there on the board and saying, okay, like we need to have an answer to how we're going to line up to and defend this. And, just so grateful because I learned from Coach that there is no secret. It's a microcosm of life. It really is. It's a microcosm of life. There's no shortcut.
Right.
Like teams either know how to line up and have people that can teach, so that the kids know why they're doing what they're doing, and why it could give them a chance to be successful, or you don't. And you've either invested the time to find those answers and to develop as a teacher to do that, or you don't. And that's the hardest thing. There is no quick way to do that. You got to go through it.
Yeah, and that's what Coach Wiles, did, right? That was the, we laughed earlier in Sully's episode, culture, right? That's the culture he created.
Right.
Back then, it's just how he did things.
Right? Yeah.
Now they call it the culture.
Right. That's cool. Right now, we just did it.
Right.
That's what we believe.
That's right.
It wasn't culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're either setting yourself up you know, I just don't. I don't want to sell the kids a falsehood. You know, don't want to sell the other coaches a falsehood.
Right.
And you're setting yourself up. If you think you're going to get lucky and just make the right call, you're setting yourself up for failure. And what happens a lot is then we resort to we want to blame the kids, or you want to blame whatever, or we're just not as good as them. And it's like, and I'll say, like, it did not, and it did not matter what we had out there on the field. It did not matter. Our expectation was we were going to have an answer, and the kid was going to play hard, and he was going to do his job. And there were times where the other kid was well coached, and he may have been better, and he may have beaten us.
Right.
But that was what it took, and that honestly is probably why Coach was so successful. If I was to point to one thing, is you had to beat us. There was never going to be the excuse, oh, well, they had a better player across from our corner.
Right.
Right. Well, that's what I think about when I think about that 05 team, right? That won it was just mentally tough. Like, you had to beat them. Very talented, but physically and mentally just tougher than everybody you played.
Yeah. Awesome kids, and super, super tough football team. I mean, that year, the two games the year before with Nice, and then that year in 05, the game with Nice, just two great high school football teams. And you always look back and you think things are easy. I said this to our kids last year and to our coaches last year. We had this huge win to start the season last year at Bowles, which for us was a huge win because we had lost 4 or 5 in a row to Bowles. But we lost both inside linebackers to injuries. We lost our nickel to an injury. We're like, it's deflating. And I told our staff and I told our team, I was like, guys, like, we look back on 2005 and think it was just, we just ripped everybody to a 15-0. No, we didn't.
Right.
No,
I can
not at all.
remember we had to start our defensive end at 3 technique in a district championship game against Clay because we had so many injuries in our defensive line. And we didn't know if we could win the game, and we won the game. And I can remember, again, playing against Nice, like, how are we going to hold up against these 2 massive fronts they have?
Right.
And obviously one of the best players in state history.
Frank Garris, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so there were plenty of hard times. It's never easy. Nothing's ever going to be easy. It's very rarely that you see a team do, the whole, go 15-0 with 10 running clocks. Like, that's just right. And honestly, if they're doing that, that'll never happen at St. Augustine because we're never going to have an all-star team.
Right.
So we're going to have St. Augustine. So it's always going to be hard.
Players you built.
Right. And not to say we've never had a transfer, but that's another thing that's special about St. Augustine. It was special with Coach. Those kids that were on the field in 2005, those kids were wearing maroon and gold when they were 8 years old playing in West Augustine.
That's right.
But because of that, you know that it's not going to be easy.
Right.
There was pride.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
There was pride in the logo,
Absolutely.
pride in the uniform, and you're going to have to beat us.
For sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's take a timeout. More with Coach Braddock when we come back on After the Game.
More with Josh, Coach Sully, and Brian Braddock when After the Game returns, including Coach Braddock's next big jump to the head coaching ranks, but not at St. Augustine initially. Coach Brian Braddock was named our Friday Night Blitz Jaguars Prep Coach of the Year for 2023, and as part of the honor, he was able to attend the Super Bowl in February along with his wife in Las Vegas.
It's hard to put a price on comfort, especially when you use that comfort on a daily basis. But if we're going to put a price on it, how does the lowest price guaranteed sound? Furniture Source is going to have the biggest brands, whether it's Ashley, Casper, or Tempur-Pedic, and once again, it's going to be the guaranteed lowest price in Jacksonville. Right now, my friends at Furniture Source are going to give you the ultimate hookup because all month long, they're making their inventory wholesale price. Check out their markdowns up to 50% off. And remember, since it's Furniture Source, you're getting the guaranteed lowest prices in Florida or your money back. Don't have the cash on you right now? It's no worry. Shop endless options to suit your style and budget and enjoy 36 months off with no interest financing. Why use your money when you can use theirs? Whether it's beds, couches, tables, or chairs, Furniture Source is going to have exactly what you're looking for. Shop the lowest prices in Jacksonville guaranteed. Find the location nearest you at FurnitureSourceJax.com.
burgers, or breakfast. You can get it all at Whataburger. Try something new on the menu or an all-time favorite like the Whataburger Patty Melt.
And now you can have breakfast here at Whataburger 12 hours a day, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. Menu items like the bacon taquito, sausage taquito, honey butter chicken biscuit. Whether you work the late night shift, just want a snack early in the morning to get your day started, or a little pick-me-up late in the morning, 12 hours a day, breakfast served, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m.
A dozen locations in Jacksonville. You can order pickup or delivery and download the Whataburger app. New rewards members get free Whataburger items when placing their first online order. Just download the app. And for us coffee drinkers, Whataburger has all new hot coffee and iced coffee too. Satisfy that coffee craving at Whataburger 24/7, and it comes in a variety of flavors. Burgers, breakfast, coffee, and so much more. Whataburger, just like you like it. In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome back, Coach Braddock. You get the call up from Coach Wiles. For the second time in your St. Augustine days, you get moved from JV to varsity.
Right.
So what was that like?
Oh, it was exciting. So I came up and was coaching DBs, working with Jim Matheson. He was coordinating the defense, and it was a great time. So loved it. It was what I wanted to do at that point, like any young coach. So that was year 5, and then I did that for a couple of years, and then again, just kind of a cool story about a coach who's done a lot. Jim Matheson, who joined us in 2006, right after the state championship. He had been Coach of the Year in Broward County. He's a legend in South Florida. Awesome human being. He was doing the defense, but he and I were like this. I mean, we were in lockstep. We were both in the secondary, and we get to the spring game in 2010, and we're on the sideline. And at one point, he looks over and he goes, "You should just call it. Just call it." And I'm like, "That's not gonna go over with the boss. Like you don't do a battlefield promotion type thing, right there with anybody that you respect." So, but he was just saying it, like messing with me a little bit. And there were some DC jobs coming open at some pretty cool programs around the state. And I met with Coach Wiles and was like, I want to do this. I know I'm ready to do this as closely as I work with Jim. And this was at the end of the school year, right after the spring game. And I get a phone call maybe a day later. And it's Coach Wiles calling me saying, "Hey, here's what we're going to do." Jim came to me. He said, "You want to be the DC more than he does. He's been coaching for 40 years.
Right.
He's happy to just coach the secondary. So you're gonna be the coordinator. And I know it's your first time, but you can lean on me and him. Whatever you need, everything's gonna be fine." So that was just the kind of guy that Jim Matheson was.
Right.
He had already, again, he'd been coaching for 40 years.
Right.
He'd had his time. He had done his thing, and he cared about the program. I think that's why he went to coach and was like, that's going to keep him here. And then he cared about coach, and he cared about me, and made a selfless decision, which for him, honestly, was a very easy decision to make. Jim would smile at you and go, "Hey, I don't have to worry about things when I go to the beach on the weekend now." So that was really cool, and something that I'll never forget and always appreciate, and something that I'll try to remember with how you try to bring out a young coaches what they're capable of, And the next 3 years was the defensive coordinator, 10, 11, and 12, and went pretty well and had a lot of fun, and it was a good time.
And then it's time to step out on your own.
Yeah.
And the opportunity comes open at a great program
Mm-hmm.
at Mandarin, and you take the Mandarin job, and from there.
Yeah, so obviously I knew I wanted to be a head coach. Thought I would want to be a head coach earlier than I was, but I learned really quickly at St. Augustine this is no, I need to not rush this.
Right.
Everybody thinks they can be a head coach at 28, and that was not the case for me. So I think I was 32 and was looking at a few jobs. It was just kind of time. When you're a defensive coordinator for a defensive head coach, it's and then everything was great. Not like that, but it was just kind of time. It's just kind of time to go. And everybody asked, like how much were you prepared for it? And Coach Wiles did a lot of things for me to help me, just watching coach, but a lot of things to help me prepare for it. But it's like having a kid or getting married. You can't be
Right.
fully
There's
prepared
no
for
way
it.
you prepare for being the head coach.
No. So I literally had no idea what I was doing. But I appreciate Mark Lassier at Mandarin High School for hiring me. I don't know that I was the first choice with everybody, and I think our track record at St. Augustine of just being a program built on foundationally built on substance, built on fundamentals, playing hard, the weight room. I think he appreciated that. And, Mandarin, I honestly didn't know a ton about Mandarin. I knew it was a good school. I knew it was an appealing school to a lot of people in Duval County. Nice facilities, great location, great community, and was really fortunate to get a job like that. They had been struggling, a lot of hard times since Coach Hall had passed, and over many years. And I think they had won maybe 5 games in the 3 years before we came in, and that was a time. Didn't know Sean McIntyre, able to get him hired. He had after our amazing stint leading the JV Jackets for a couple years, he went home down to the Melbourne area, and he coached there and did a tremendous job. Eventually became defensive coordinator. Well, I hired him at Mandarin. He was our offensive coordinator, and he was obviously going to be a head coach. So that was huge. So him, his wife Megan, they move up, and that was wonderful. None of us knew what we were doing. He and I loved to talk about those times. It was great. But yeah, then 5-5, 6-4, and then 12-1, and that was really special. A lot of things about Mandarin. Had my second child the day before my first game as a head coach. My son Benjamin, my son Jackson had in 2011. Had Benjamin in August of 2013. So raised our little babies for a few years there. My firstborn was a little celebrity in the stands, and to see that community. I do think there's something special about a school that's named after the community. I would rather work at St. Augustine than somewhere that's not named after a community.
Right.
I'd rather work at Mandarin than somewhere that's not named after. Right. I think that's meaningful. And there was so much I didn't know about anywhere else, and that's truly a special community. It's a great place to work, a great school.
Well, one of the keys you turning around had to be keeping it a community, right? Because for years, Mandarin was the hardest hit school by the private schools. Yeah. Public school wise, because it's proximity, right?
Sure.
Right. It's some upper income levels, as well as the proximity to the private schools. I mean, keeping the kids there had to be a challenge.
Well, and we had kids all over the place.
Right.
So we're going out and playing other schools, and that's a Mandarin kid. And I don't know a lot of this because I don't live in. I'm not a Jacksonville guy.
Right.
And I'm just like, well, but to be honest, like when I got to Mandarin, I wasn't really concerned about the talent that we inherited. It was the first time in my life I'd looked around at my team, and they were all taller than me. At St. Augustine, we're not big.
Right.
So I was like, man, we can do something with this. We might look a little different, but we've got some big kids. And just learned a lot the hard way though. I learned about coaching coaches. I thought everybody just did everything the same way that St. Augustine did it, and that was a harsh reality check for me. My wife comes out our first practice in 2013. My wife comes out to practice. She's pregnant, got our oldest, and I'm literally thinking like I might just jump the fence and run out to 295 and lay down, because I know what practice is supposed to look like, and I'm just like, this is not it. And we're at a break, and I go over to her, and she looks at me, and I'm thinking she's going to be positive. She just looks at me and goes, "Wow." I was like, "This isn't good." And she goes, "Did you know you're the only guy out here with a whistle?" And that was kind of embarrassing. I was like, even she's not being positive about this. And but I really didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how much you have to define how everything needs to be done. I didn't know how you needed to do things in February and March and April. Take your coaches out, have them walk through drills, show them. Take them to other people's practices, and I think that those 3 years were huge for me to learn how to do that, and I think it showed up in how we played. Sean learned all these things too, and it was awesome.
Somebody said there, Sully, you've touched on before, is having the mentor to know what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
All right, I know what it's supposed to look like. Now I've got to figure out how to get to that point, because it's different everywhere and with everybody.
Right.
You can get to that point, but how do you get there? And I guess that's what Mandarin did for you, right? Was teach you how to be that leader. Absolutely.
I mean, I just learned that you've got to, like Kirby Smart says, demand and confront. Demand a standard, make it very clear. If I've got to not only it can't just be all accountability. Like the standard has to be defined and it has to be clear. Then the accountability can come, but it also has to come with the support to meet the standard. And I was a disaster at that, and so I really had to learn how to coach coaches. And I'm grateful for that time.
I think that's probably the biggest thing going from assistant to head coach. Is you as an assistant, you just were like, hey, I just know what I'm supposed to do. I'm gonna take care of my guys. I get our guys, and then all of a sudden you're the head coach, and your O-line coach. He not even teaching what you're doing in his drill. He's over there running the drill, and you're like, what? That has no bearing on what we're doing. They're over there doing, the monkey roll, and you're like, what the heck are they doing? And so you don't think about that as you become the head coach. And I think it takes you a year or two not only get your guys have confidence to be able to say, no, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. We're not doing that. That's not how we do it. Right. And I think that you learn that, and that makes you a little bit better as you go on.
Well, and then also too, just the whole part we were talking about earlier about how there's not a miracle, there's not a magic pill that's going to make us good all of a sudden. And I will say I'm grateful. The kids were eager to work. Some of them that didn't. They kind of said, well, you can have that. And I think that's what things changed pretty rapidly just based on the weight room and learning how to practice. Right. So that was really exciting. One of the best things I probably ever did was going into 2015, or at the start of 2015 in August. We were practicing in the morning. St. Augustine was practicing in the evenings. So I took our two best players, our two leaders on defense, two seniors, and took them with me to watch St. Augustine practice on defense. And one was a D lineman, which you've coached against Kurt Stewart. I mean, right. Most people would say the best defensive line coach in this area in the past 25 years. He's incredible. So I said, Fernando, you just follow that group. And then the other one was a DB. You follow that group the whole practice. And I'll never forget, we leave, and they were blown away. And a picture's worth 1,000 words to watch how hard they practiced. And the next day, we're at practice the next morning, and these two are just losing it on the rest of the defense about running to the football.
Right.
And like this isn't running to the ball. Like, you don't know, you don't understand. And like, these were kids that the rest of the defense listened to. So like, the best thing I may have ever done was took them to what a real practice looks like and showed them. And then they wanted to be the guys who led that and coached it and made a big difference.
So then they come back, and that sets the tone, right?
Right.
For what ends up being a special year. Right?
Yeah.
Undefeated regular season, Gateway Conference champs, which in Duval is a huge deal. All right. Talk a little bit about that season.
I mean, I don't know. When I look at the whole situation, obviously we've had some really special times at St. Augustine as an assistant and as a head coach. But I think, and I could probably speak for my wife and I don't know that there's ever been a fairy tale type of just magical ride as that 2015 season at Mandarin. Sean and I, we like to joke that we weren't good at anything but winning games.
Right.
And that's the truth. We had some good players. But I mean, we had one FBS football player. We had our top 5 skill players on offense the next year didn't start. They had a new staff the next year. They were all coming back. None of them started the next year because better players came in, better players. But these were just awesome kids. I mean, awesome kids. We weren't particularly fast. We weren't particularly gifted. We had a couple of dominant defensive tackles, but weren't particularly gifted in the trenches anywhere else. And just a group of kids that had 100% bought in. I'll never forget burning of the shoes. We didn't do it the first year at Mandarin because it just you got to appreciate it. You got to know what it means.
Yeah.
But I remember that year at burning of the shoes, kid after kid after kid, just being like, thank you that you guys would come up on the weekends and prepare. That thank you that on Monday, we know that you're ready to tell us how to win. And not that it doesn't make us special, but it was cool to me that the kids understood that. The kids got that. And to see that community just get excited. And I mean, we had some magical wins during the season. And then obviously to win some playoff games and go, undefeated in the regular season and win the Gateway Conference was just amazing. But it was just so special, remarkably special. And I mean, I think about the only way you could top that season would maybe be to have a special season where you win a state title.
Right. So finish the successful season, right? Cinderella season, and then you get the phone call going home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was not expecting that, not in the least. Wasn't ideal timing. We're coming off.
Right.
We're coming off of a real good season, and I think everybody in this area knows that. Mandarin, especially in the day and age of school choice and open enrollment, Mandarin is positioned very, very well to attract a lot of high quality student athletes. And and that legislation took place in 2016, which also happens to coincide with the decision to leave. We had become entrenched in that school community. Had 3 years in, we're in love with that school, with the kids. I mean, it was truly bittersweet, and it was truly a hard decision.
Oh, man.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people questioned it, rightfully so. People very close to me and my family questioned it, doubted it, advised me to do the opposite. For me, open enrollment was part of the reason why I came home, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I could already see what that was going to look like now that we were good. I could already see that off season, just the work it was to keep track of your kids, but also to deal with all the people knocking on your door, and it just didn't appeal to me. So as weird as that sounds, that actually was part of the appeal to go back home.
Yeah.
Because it's not that way. Obviously, every school's a capacity in St. Johns County. So while we'll sometimes have some kids leave to another county, there's not a lot of movement there. You can focus on serving your kids' hearts before their talents.
Right.
And I was worried. I didn't want to have that tension every day of trying to serve their talent to keep them here, to keep them happy, or have this kid come in and again, that's the state law. So those are the rules that people play by. Just so happens in St. Johns County that it's the state law also says 85% of seats being filled means you're at capacity, and I like that because I feel like now more than ever these kids need a firm line. Yeah, they need a firm line, and that firm line can't move for different kids because they're more talented. And I'm not saying that does in other counties where the kids are more transient. I just know for me that was going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
At St. Augustine.
Well, you did. Most guys don't want to follow the guy.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to follow the guy that follows the guy.
Sure.
But when you get called to go home, it's tough.
Well,
Yeah.
and not only do you follow the guy's your mentor.
Yes.
You're home, and you're leaving your right-hand man.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, that first year, Sean was able to come with us. He unfortunately did, and that was hard too. Him not getting the job at Mandarin, that was hard for me. That was a big part of my piece about leaving Mandarin, was knowing that he's been here from day one. He's going to do an incredible job. And the silver lining with him not getting that job was that then he came with us to St. Augustine, right. and then obviously on to Creekside from there, and just done an incredible job. It was hard. Yeah. I mean, it was hard. I think a lot of people think it was just, St. Augustine, so you went home. No, it was extremely hard. And I kind of put it like this: if it was college football, you definitely stay at Mandarin for multiple reasons. You don't follow the legend. You stay where when Mandarin's good, kids are coming. Right. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, how many NFL guys have been at Mandarin, right? So if it was college football and you're earning your salary to try to win a college football playoff national championship every year, and you got to win games, then you probably stay at Mandarin. Right. But it's not college football; it's high school football. And St. Augustine is home, and for some of those reasons I mentioned earlier, made the decision to go home.
So how was it when you got there? I mean, what was your mindset? Because you went from Mandarin not knowing what the heck you're doing, right, as a head coach, right? And you know what it's supposed to look like, and you got to figure out how to get there. Now you go there, you know what it looks like, and you know how he got there. Yeah. Was it don't screw it up, or how do I change it without offending him, or a little bit of both?
Well, that's it's hard. It's challenging because you want to be you. I think the kids are going to catch on really quick if you come in and you're just trying to mimic. Right. What your mentor did, and so that's never easy. That was hard. A lot of kids got out. I mean, I can tell you that. A lot of kids who I think were like, I play football because of the legacy here and because it's St. Augustine. A lot of those got out. I remember that first year, there were times where we dressed less than 40 kids in a varsity game. We were extremely thin, and I kind of knew this is going to be hard. It's going to be really hard work. Had an incredible staff. I mean, Coach had built an incredible staff. Then you add Sean to that, and it was amazing. Got to come back and work with some of my dearest, closest friends, guys like Kurt Stewart and Nathaniel Woolner, and amongst others, and be back with Jim, and that was really special too. And it was really humbling to come back and see how much just respect that they would give to me when I was their buddy before, or when it's Jim. Right. Jim's my superior, right. That took a little bit of time to work through as well for me. But it was humbling. It was amazing. I more than I deserved. Anyways, and to following the legend point, it doesn't help when you lose your first game because everybody says, well, what changed? Oh, you.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, you certainly hadn't taken a step back. I mean, program-wise, I'm looking at some stats here that I wrote down in the prep. Second year, Final Four, right? You made 3 region championships, 6 district championships. But here's the thing, Sully, you'll appreciate this. This is, to me, what sums up St. Augustine, right? 13 of the 17 coaches are alumni.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's everybody should think that where they are is special. They should, because it's as special as you make it.
Sure.
But it really is special at St. Augustine. Yeah. It really is. It really is different. And it's obviously we're old. We've been there the school's been around for over 60 years. So there's a lot of tradition. We're coaching kids now whose grandparents graduated from St. Augustine High School. But yeah, and there's a bunch of us on staff now that played for Coach, and even some younger guys that played under me. So it's incredible. It's terrific.
Well.
Our as generations go and younger kids come in, they don't always, I think, appreciate it as much as we would want them to. But I think they do more than sometimes they let on.
Right.
So it's cool. And honestly, the ones that need to eventually do. So it's cool. And for us, that's a balancing act, though. We can't live in the past. We can't. We always have to be careful. We can't hold our kids to a standard from somebody before them, other than if it's the standard about how we do things. But it can't turn into a whole bunch of way back stories. Like, it can't be that way. But it is important that we have that pride and that it makes a difference. We had when we have practice on Thanksgiving, if we're fortunate enough to get to that point in the season, we invite alumni, family, everybody out. And this past year, we must have had 100 people out there that were former players. It was amazing. So that's really special, and it's really cool.
And speaking of Thanksgiving, you were definitely there this year, right? Had what's to date your best season? Made it to the state championship game. Special team.
Yeah. When I look back over the 20 years I've been doing this, our 2007 team at St. Augustine, our 2010 team at St. Augustine, 2015 at Mandarin, and then in that group, I would put our team this year. And the reason why I single those teams out, we've had some other great teams with amazing kids that I love, and love all my teams, but that I've been a part of. But the makeup of those teams, the challenges that all those teams overcame to get where they got, and all those teams were either semifinals or finalists.
Right.
None of those teams I just mentioned were able to win it. Well, I guess in Mandarin we lost in the regional finals, but so yeah, special team. We just had an awesome mix of seniors who'd played a lot of football, but then juniors who are just awesome kids that are hyper talented, and the character of our team. It was a fun team. It was an easy team. This past spring and then fall, we had, I think it was 62 and then 68 out of our 105 kids were 3.0 or higher, which at some schools is not a big deal. At St. Augustine, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
We've had semesters where it's 30, and those go hand in hand.
Sure.
And what I've learned is I think a lot of times you can identify a team that's going to be special the second semester in ninth grade.
Yeah.
You can tell in the weight room. You can tell by their makeup and how they do things. Our rising senior class, that were juniors this year, their JV season, I think they went 4-4, 5-3, something like that. But you could tell, like, these kids are going to maximize what they're capable of. And all those teams I mentioned were teams like that. So special team, obviously a devastating finish. No, you don't get over it. I'll never get over it. Doesn't mean you don't move on, but I'll never get over how it ended.
Well, Coach, we could certainly talk about football, especially St. Augustine football, with you for hours, but we got to wrap it up here. But before we do, we like to end each episode with just what's one piece of advice. If current Coach Braddock could go back and give rookie Coach Braddock just one piece of advice, what would you give yourself?
Yeah. And this is stolen from Clemson, which Rashard Hall, who played at St. Augustine, he's still on staff there. Serve your players' hearts before you serve their talents. And that isn't hold hand kumbaya kind of stuff.
Right.
What that means is most of the time you're going to need to be firm and be uncomfortable if you really want to serve their heart. when you let their talent start getting in the way and start impacting how you treat them, whether it's because they're not talented or because they are super talented, you're going to lose your way. So I think, as a young coach, you can be really worried about, what people are going to say and think and winning. And you're more worried about keeping the talent happy. That's fool's gold. Serve their hearts before you serve their talent.
That's awesome, man. It's been fun.
Yeah,
awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate everything you do for the football community, everything you've done for me over the years, and thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you as well.
Awesome.
People helping people is at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From 1954 to 2024, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. That commitment includes a partnership with the Action Sports Jax 24/7 team as the presenting sponsor of all Armada men's and women's broadcasts this summer. Action Sports Jax and Alive Credit Union, a partnership that just makes sense when it comes to covering Northeast Florida. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of our first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants.
We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter.
Right now, you can save $1,000 or more when you bundle the Connecticut Premier Softener with a Connecticut K5 drinking water system. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Financing options available with approved credit. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.